Okay, well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's virtual plant clinic. My name is Bill Lester. I'm with University of Florida Extension in Hernando County, and today we have our regular co-host, Lily Browning, who is
Hello.
our Florida-friendly landscape coordinator, but she's not in Florida
Not
today.
at the moment, no.
Where are
I'm,
you at?
I am in southwestern Pennsylvania, little teeny town called East Vandergrift.
Gosh, I'm sorry. It looks like it's chilly up there.
It
Chilly
is
and rainy.
chilly. It's 50 degrees and raining.
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
I'm
that's
about I'm about 40 miles northeast of Pittsburgh.
okay. Well, definite nice change of pace, but
Yeah, I've saw beautiful, absolutely stunningly beautiful leaves, and now they're kind of a little over peak. The colors are more muted now, but I was here for the vibrant peak colors. It's still very, very pretty, but I haven't seen the sun in 3 or 4 days. So,
well, it's beautiful, sunny, and supposed to be about 88 here today, I think. So a little bit warmer than where you are.
yeah, that's what I was just saying. When I come back Sunday, I know I'll be greeted with that warm, wet welcome, hug, and kiss from Florida the second I walk out of the doors at the Tampa airport. That's the way I'm trying to put some positivity on it.
Well, it is supposed to cool off here, so hopefully it'll be a little bit nicer for people to go outside and work in the yard and
Yeah.
garden. I'm hoping for that soon. But today we have a special guest here with us. Dr. Mary Lusk is with University of Florida. She is a researcher that works with water. She works with a certain kind of water, mostly wastewater, septic systems. You work with retention ponds, don't you? And Mary, I'll let you explain where you work and basically what you do, what you research.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I'm so excited to be here today and be chatting with you guys. So I'm in the University of Florida's Soil and Water Sciences Department, and I'm located at the university's Gulf Coast Research and Education Center in Hillsborough County. So we are in Wimauma, Florida, which is a little suburb of Tampa Bay. And we do a lot of the university's strawberry and tomato breeding and genetics research and wonderful strawberries and tomatoes that come out of our research center here. I don't do strawberries and tomatoes, but I do urban water. And so this is a good location for me right here in the Tampa Bay area. I focus mostly on stormwater and wastewater and the nutrients or the nitrogen and phosphorus that can be in those waters and how they can fuel algal blooms and other water quality problems in Florida. So that's what I do, and I have spent a lot of time the last couple of years thinking about septic systems in Florida and doing education around the entire state of Florida on septic systems and how they can impact our water quality.
Yeah, we work together on a program to teach and educate extension agents on septic systems and how to properly maintain them and the impacts it can have on the environment. And that's definitely outside of what I studied in school. I never imagined that I'd become so proficient on septic systems, even though I have one here in my house in Spring Hill. And Lily, your
Yes,
house in Florida, you have septic system also.
yes, I do. Yep.
Yes, so many of us have it. So if any of you have any questions about septics or anything else, go ahead and type them in the chat box. I got the chat box open here to go ahead and share your questions. Hopefully a few of you hopefully don't have any septic emergencies because you never want that to happen. But the best way to avoid that is to understand your system and maintain it. So Mary, what are a couple simple things you could do to maintain your septic system, things that people might want to keep in mind?
Yeah, so there's a couple of cute little slogans that we use sometimes when we talk about maintaining your septic system properly. One of those is "Don't overload the commode." First of all, just be careful what you flush. Really just human waste and toilet paper is it. We tell people to make sure not to flush, anything else besides human waste and toilet paper, and that includes flushable wipes. Flushable wipes are not really flushable. They're kind of marketed as such, but they can be nightmares in our sewer systems and in septic tanks. They can just clog those systems up, and they don't really go anywhere after they're flushed. They can just build up and accumulate and cause all kinds of problems. And you don't want a clogged up septic tank, because that starts leading to stuff that's flowing back into your house. So first of all, don't overload the commode. Another one that we use sometimes is think at the sink, and this would include principles like, not pouring lots of hot grease and oils down the sink. A little bit from cooking and washing up your dishes every night is okay, but not like huge jars of cooking oil, because those fats and greases can cause problems in your septic system. Also don't pour harsh chemicals down the drain or down the toilet that can get into your septic system. And this would be like, bottles of bleach or disinfectant or things like that, that can potentially harm the good bacteria that are in your septic tank and doing the work that we need them to do to break down waste in that septic tank. So, just no harsh chemicals, and again, bottles and bottles of bleach. You can definitely use stuff like that for routine weekly cleaning in your house, but don't overdo it. Even if you've got an old bottle of, say, Clorox sitting around, don't dump the whole bottle down the sink or something. Find a better way to dispose of that, perhaps, a hazardous waste disposal facility or something like that. Also really want to make sure that you get that system inspected every couple of years and have it pumped every 3 to 5 years. If you've got a lot of people living in your home, you're going to be more towards every 3 years. If it's just you or maybe 2 people in the home, maybe every 5 years is okay. But about every 3 to 5 years, be sure to get that system professionally pumped by a septic system maintenance contractor. It's going to cost probably a couple $100, but that couple $100 for every 3 to 5 years is a lot better than thousands of dollars for a repair if something is not going right, or if things start getting clogged up. So keep that in mind.
I think we did ours in 2017, so 3 years ago, and it was about like $200, $250, something like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we get ours done every 2 to 3 years just to keep it in good working order. Because I know that there are some people who think that you could just go, and then when it backs up and starts to back up into the house, that's when you're supposed to get it pumped. And unfortunately, if you wait until that happens, a lot of times now you have drain field problems and septic problems that it's going to cost a lot more other than just the price of a pumping to fix.
Right.
So we even have a good question here. So Facebook user, who is a regular viewer here, asked, can you grow food such as a garden over the drain field? And if so, how does that impact the food? Mary, you want to answer this one?
Well, the short answer is just no. Don't grow a garden over your septic tank drain field. Really, we don't recommend any sort of edibles being grown on that drain field. Short-rooted grasses and small shrubs are your best bet. Really turf grass is about the best thing to grow over that. Bill may have some other recommendations as far as short-rooted grasses and flowers and shrubs that would be appropriate. But we generally recommend no food on that, because there is a risk of bacterial contamination that can be associated with that.
Yeah, and some people might be tempted to do that because what's that saying, that the grass is always greener on the septic tank? And it does get a continuous supply of water, and you might notice that your grass on top of the drain field grows really, really well. And you might think like, if I dig up that grass and put it in a vegetable garden, it will grow really well. And it probably will, but you have the potential of bacterial contamination. It's not going to be very safe. So you really want to stick with turf grass. You can plant very short. I mean, if you wanted to put a flower garden with short-rooted annual flowers on it, you could. The problem is drain fields are normally out in your front yard. and it's an area that would normally have turf on it anyway, and to switch to anything other than turf is going to look a little unusual. Which reminds me, I got an email, let me go ahead and pull it up here, last night, which was kind of perfect timing because we're talking about this today. Liz emailed me last night and asked, we just purchased property in Hernando County and we're having a new drain field installed, which will dig up our entire front lawn. We don't know really what to do, so we would like to have some advice on the subject. So with this, normally when you have to have a drain field replaced, they have to come in and dig up the old drain field, which is in your front yard, and they dig up a section of your front lawn, they replace the drain field, they put down the rocks, the pipes, it gets inspected, they put the soil back down. What most people are going to do is just get it resodded on top of it. And that's going to be determined by what kind of grass you had or you have in the rest of your yard. Obviously, if you had St. Augustine, you want to replace on top of the drain field with St. Augustine. If you have Bahia, you want to replace with Bahia. Let's say your yard was just very wild and native and pretty much all weeds. You could leave it bare because eventually something's going to grow there. You're going to get weeds or something is going to pop up and fill back in and cover it. Eventually, it'll be bare dirt for a while. So we'd normally recommend that you get it resodded. I'm sure that most companies that redo drain fields can do that. Of course, it's going to cost you extra if you want it resodded because there is the cost of the sod, the manpower to put it down. It's hard work, especially when it's hot and sunny. So that's probably be my best advice for somebody with getting a drain field replaced. And Facebook user comes back with, does it show a problem if the grass is black like it is rotting over the septic tank? If so, what problem and what is the solution? And that's a good question.
So, Bill, I'm not familiar with what kinds of things would cause black turf grass, but to me that does sound like a problem. If there's indication that there's waste that's seeping up out of that drain field, then you absolutely have a problem. It could be, it most likely is, the waste is backing up or that you've got a clogged system somehow. That drain field should not be squishy. It should not stay wet most of the time. You should not see stuff oozing out of it. So that's from my perspective from the septic systems, and Bill and Lily may have some other ideas about what would cause black turf grass.
I'm wondering if it's being overwatered. I mean, the rest of the lawn is just getting the sprinkler system, and that area is also, getting the drainage field as well. And there could be some major take-all root rot or something going on there. What would you think, Bill?
That could be. I mean, obviously, the grass on top of the drain field is always going to get a certain amount of water from below, from the liquid component that's coming out through the drain field. So if you overwater the grass from above, also, your grass may just be too wet and staying too wet. If you go out there and walk over top of the drain field and the ground is always squishy, if you detect a bad odor, that's a very bad sign, I would assume, because that means that
you got a leak.
You have a leak. Things are not supposed to come up. They're supposed to ideally go down. But if there's something broken and things are coming up, that's a problem. You probably want to contact a licensed septic company to come out there and give it an inspection. And they'll come out and inspect it for a very reasonable price. I know whenever you're buying or selling a house, you have to get a septic inspection. So they're used to going out and doing inspections quite a bit. It's not very expensive and maybe a very good idea just to make sure everything's in good running order. Because I know in the past we've had septic problems. We still own a house over in Deltona, and it is in a BMAP area also. So I own 2 houses in BMAP priority focus areas. Yay.
Well, the other thing is the grass could actually just be some kind of what we would consider weedy type grass. and some of like the summer weeds are going, they're going away right now. So they could be turning dark purple or blackish just because they are cocoa weeds and they're dying out this time of year due to the lack of sunlight.
No, that's a good point. I have big dead patches in my yard from summertime weeds that are dying, and it's going to take a little time before they get refilled back in with cool season weeds.
Yes.
To take their place. So it kind of depends a lot on what is growing on top of your drain field.
Yeah, I know some of the crabgrasses and stuff I have gets like a dark purpley kind of look to it. So could be black too. And that, of course, is where everything, including the weeds, is going to be the happiest because of all the water, and the nitrogen that's there. So. And
I know everybody's sand spur is dying back for the winter.
No,
and the sand spurs are all fully ripe.
Not in the Royal Highlands. They're having a heyday in the Royal Highlands in the fall.
Yeah, the little sand spurs are fully ripe and they're getting hardened off. So if you step on one, it will really hurt right now. This is when we get all the calls about sand spurs. So Mary, maybe you have an idea of what is involved in a septic tank system inspection.
Yeah, so they're going to come in, they're going to open that tank. A lot of times the homeowner doesn't even know where that tank is, but there are little places where the inspection company can come in and kind of just open it up. They're going to look at things like the depth of the waste material in the tank to the top of the tank, and just look and make sure that there's adequate spacing in there, that things aren't building up excessively. They will inspect your drain field. They'll look at just water in that drain field and make sure that it's not really squishy again. Make sure there's no obvious signs of leakage or anything like that. They may come into the house and just kind of look at appliances and toilets and things like that. Make sure that wastewater is moving the way that it needs to be moving, but mostly they're going to be out there. Just there's a little port they can open. They can look at the tank. They may drop something down in so they can see a little bit better in there, and just kind of see the spacing of things in there. Make sure that everything looks like it's working the way it should.
Again, I know with the system that I have here in Spring Hill at our current house, there's a screen that I believe is between the tank and the drain field. And the screen needs to be cleaned more frequently than the tank needs to be pumped. And they come out and they know where the screen is and they'll clean it because I don't want to do it. I'd rather have them do it. So depending on what kind of system you have, it may involve a screen or something that needs to be maintained a little bit more often than the every couple of year pumping.
So Mary, can you tell us about the nitrogen reducing tanks? I think now if you get a new tank in Florida, you have to get the nitrogen reducing tank.
Yeah, so nitrogen is a big deal for us in Florida. So nitrogen is the nutrient that is necessary for plant growth, but it's a really good example of too much of a bad thing when it's in water in excessive levels. And it can be the element that causes a lot of our harmful algal blooms and our red tides. And so we're concerned about nitrogen or excess nitrogen. Again, not too much of a good thing in our waters in Florida. And septic systems can definitely be a source of nitrogen to the environment. Our human waste has nitrogen in it from the food that we eat. And a conventional septic system, which is just a tank and a drain field, will only remove about 30 to 40% of the nitrogen that goes into them. So that leaves the other 60 to 70% of that nitrogen to escape to the environment, potentially to groundwater, which then can move to our coastal waters or somehow to surface water bodies in Florida and cause problems like algal bloom. So we're really concerned about that. There is technology that does enhanced nitrogen removal. They're just called enhanced nitrogen removal septic systems. And there are places in Florida where those are now being required. So if you have an old system that needs to be replaced, when you go to the health department to pull a a permit to get that replacement, they're going to tell you you have to have an advanced nitrogen removal system. Those systems just use, really they use nature itself to achieve greater nitrogen removal. So to have greater nitrogen removal, we need a couple of things. We need a low oxygen environment, and we need a carbon source. So those advanced systems they'll have like layers in them for the wastewater to move through. And as the wastewater moves through different layers, it's interacting with all of those things that it needs for nitrogen to be naturally removed by microorganisms in the soil and in the water. And and there's different technologies out there that achieve that. Some of them are just amendments to your drain field. So in some cases, they can come in and just put some of those extra layering in an existing drain field. Other times, it's an entirely new system. It requires a lot more extensive construction and removal and all kinds of. So there's a spectrum of options and technologies out there, and a certified contractor can tell you which one is going to be most appropriate for your situation, for your yard, for your house, how much waste you have coming from your home, depending on how many people are living in the home. There's a lot of options that are out there.
I believe the new homes being built in Hernando County have to have the enhanced septic tanks. Is that what you've heard, Bill? You've been to more of those meetings than I am.
Yes, I do believe so, but I'm not sure of the. It depends on where you live, like how much property your house is sitting on. And Mary made a really good point that because we have people who view this from so many different counties around Florida.
Correct.
If you want to find out specific information for your county, the department that you want to contact is going to be your health department, because they do the permitting, the licensing, and the inspection for septic systems. And they can give you all the information you need about if you want to replace your system and what you have to replace it with, or you're thinking about replacing it, or if you're thinking about having a home built, what the rules and regulations are where you live about what you have to install. Because they are changing the rules and regulations in many counties in Florida about what is going to be required in the future.
What they were created for is to keep us safe from pathogens and becoming, imminently ill from it. Now we need to go beyond that and also protect the environment, which protects our long-term health. So.
Yeah, they do a great job of blocking diseases.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we don't normally have cholera and dysentery outbreaks in Florida like they have in other countries because of septic systems, but they just don't do the traditional septic systems don't do a very good job of removing the nitrogen, and that's becoming a problem in the environment.
Yeah, and those new regulations, just like Bill said, will depend largely on which county you're in. So be sure to check with your county health department about what applies to you and what doesn't. They vary all over the state.
Yeah, and it may even depend on exactly where in a county you live. I know a lot of counties are divided up with the different zones.
I think, Bill, you mentioned your two homes are in BMAP areas, and again, we're so used to speaking, what we're used to knowing. So why don't you tell people what a BMAP is?
Sure. Well, first of all, real quick, Facebook user came back with, he has a fern-like grass growing all over my yard. If you were to email us pictures or if you live in Hernando County and you stop by the office and bring a sample in, we could tell you exactly what you have growing, whether it's turf grass or whether it's a specific weed or whatever. So let me go ahead and throw my email up here. If you want to go ahead and send me some pictures, we could try to figure out exactly what you have growing. But Lily mentioned BMAP, or Basin Management Action Plans, and what they are. That is a big topic, so let me try to explain it clearly, but not go too into depth on it. Otherwise, we could be here for half a day going with all the ins and outs of BMAPs. The state of Florida, several years ago, the Florida legislature passed a new law that Florida springs, the very, very large springs, like here in Hernando County, we have Weeki Wachee Springs, and all up and down the west coast of Florida, you have all different springs, up in Homosassa and up in the Big Bend area. But those springs were having problems because they've been measuring way too much nitrogen coming up in the water. So the state directed the Florida Department of Environmental Protection to come up with some rules to help keep the water cleaner and to clean up the water that's very important for all of us, the groundwater and the water that comes up in the springs. So as a part of that, different counties have implemented new rules on fertilizers. Many of you, if you live in Hillsborough County, Pinellas County, we have one here in Hernando, and many other counties, you have fertilizer ordinances now. That is partly because of the BMAPs, where you might have a closed season where you're not allowed to fertilize your lawn, specific rules on professionals who fertilize lawns. They have to be licensed now. They have to go through training that Extension helps to give them. But the state has also passed new rules on septic systems, because septic systems do add a certain amount of nitrogen to the groundwater and also potentially to surface water. If you have a very old system, you live right on a river or a creek or right next to a retention pond, your system may be leaking raw sewage into surface water. So in order to stop that and prevent that, state of Florida has implemented new rules on septic systems, and long term, many areas are going to move much more towards using sewers and hooking people up to sewers and trying to use septic systems less frequently. And when they are used, they're going to be the new improved ones, like Mary mentioned, and they're going to be required as opposed to the old traditional standard septic systems, like what I have in my yard right now and what I'm sure Lily still has in her yard. So over time, the state is taking steps to help clean up the groundwater, surface water, and they're looking very hard at residential fertilizing, commercial fertilizing. There's new rules that apply to commercial farmers, ranchers. So these rules are impacting a lot of different people, but primarily for people watching us who are going to be homeowners around Florida, the two main areas that are going to impact you the most would be septic systems, if you're on one, if you're not on county sewer, and fertilizer ordinances when you go out there to fertilize your lawn. So Lily, did that answer your question?
Yes, you did a very good job. Yes.
Okay. I try not to get too deeply into the technicalities because everybody's in a different situation.
Sure.
And everybody lives in a different area, and the rules are going to be different in different areas.
Right. The Basin Management Action Plan is targeting those areas that impact the, what's the word? What do we call it? The
priority focus areas?
Yeah, that too. But what is it that springs that put out a lot of water? I can't.
Yeah, so we have BMAPs all over the state of Florida for many of our impaired water bodies. So to be an impaired water body, it means that it has been found to have some pollution in excess levels. In our cases of our springs, that's always nitrogen. So we have excess nitrogen in many of our springs, and so the spring BMAPs address what we can do to address that nitrogen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so in a big sense, we can safely say that many rules are changing and homeowners should be aware of how it impacts them. But the rules are changing for a very good reason. Mm-hmm. And hopefully things will start to improve over the years. Because I know that all depending on where you live, over on the East Coast, if you live anywhere near the Indian River, there are special rules over there because the whole Indian River waterway system over there, Mosquito Lagoon and everything else, has been so impacted by development, new home construction, runoff, fertilizers, everything. Over here on the West Coast of Florida, we have the BMAP that we fall under, that I fall under where I live in Spring Hill, is the Weeki Wachee Arapika BMAP. And if you go north of us, there's Homosassa. North of that, around Crystal River, there's the Kings Bay area. And then
You
where
skipped
north you
us.
go, there's just more and more springs.
You skipped us, Royal Highlanders. We're the Chaz.
Yes. I think do you not fall under the Weeki Wachee Arapika, but you do fall under the other one?
Chazowitska.
Okay.
Yes. The moral of the story is, water runs downhill, and it's going to find whatever pollutants is going to find the nearest waterway, especially in a place like Florida. I'll be flying in a few days, and every time I'm coming in or out of Tampa, what do you see when you look down? Nothing but water. So
Blue circles.
yes, no matter where you live, especially in Florida, you're going to impact the water with what you do.
Okay, well, here we have a tough question from Linda. In Weeki Wachee, if you're building on less than an acre, you must have the enhanced nitrogen system. So I think Linda already looked into this. Like we said, depending on where you live, you want to contact your county's health department, and they can tell you exactly what is required depending on exactly where you live or where you're working on building a home.
Mm-hmm. And almost all of those home sites are half acres, so they would all qualify under that.
Yes, because it depends on exactly where you live in Florida. And the funny thing is, there are BMAP plans in other parts of Florida that are very, very rural. So they found that their water is not impacted a lot by septic systems because so few people live there and there's very few septic systems, but it's impacted more by maybe commercial farming, maybe ranching, because there's a lot more of it going on in their area. So it really depends on what part of Florida you live in, and you need to check with your health department to find the specific rules that apply to you. So here's a good old-fashioned gardening question here. Speaking of which, asparagus fern is the worst. Yes, I have some in my hedges out front, and it is bad because it's got those nasty little thorns on it, and I always start trying to pull it out with my bare hands, and I always get torn up by the thorns. So what do you recommend you treat with after you remove that, because it just comes back? Yeah, if you just pull it up or just cut it down to the ground, it will grow back. If it's growing in your hedges, if you're diligent and you keep cutting it back to ground level, it will eventually give up and you will eventually win.
It'll take years.
If it's in more of an open area, if you spray it with a broad spectrum weed killer like glyphosate product or triclopyr, that's a chemical control to kill it. But if it's growing in your hedges and you get any of that in your hedges, it will damage them also. So my best advice for that is wear gloves, number one. Don't do like Bill and use your hands. And here's one that I can kind of relate to. How do you find a septic system if there is no raised section or obvious greener grass growing? And I remember years ago with our house in Deltona, the first time we had the septic system pumped, the guy showed up in the truck and I looked at him, I said, okay, the window for the bathroom is right over there. I'm really not sure where the septic is out here. And he's like, I know where it is. He walked right over and just started digging and boom, hit the lid perfectly, which is buried a few feet deep. So those guys know where your septic system is. They do it all day long. And they know how things were originally laid out, how builders do it. And I don't know if they have just a sixth sense or something, but they know how to find the tank and the lid to it.
Mine has that little white cap that is at the ground level. I mean, it might be covered up, but it's that plastic PVC white little cap thing. It's in front of my house, like 4 feet out or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a flush out that goes to the pipe. But you have to go further out in the yard from that to be where your tank is. So I've been through this before. Like I said, I never imagined I would be so knowledgeable on septic systems. So, Mary, any advice on how to find that tank out there, or how to find that septic?
No, I mean, sometimes it's just like I don't have a clue. The best bet is those contractor guys who just, like you said, they just have that sixth sense because they know how the builder probably was thinking, what they would do. I mean, and ideally, if you've got your plot diagram from when your parcel was built out, it should be on there. But a lot of times the homeowner doesn't have that. But it should be there if you've got something like that.
Gian, if you've had it pumped out once, if you go outside and try to make at least a mental note of where the tank is and where the lid to the tank is buried, that helps also. But if you have a professional come out, they will find it very quickly. So there's a thank you for that asparagus fern advice. Hey, if anybody else has any questions, just go ahead and jump right in and type them in, and we'll go ahead and share them here.
Well, I had a question via email, which I had discussed with you, Bill, but it kind of follows into what we're talking about today because, well, people often ask, what's the best plant material to put over your drainage field? And really that's probably going to be turf, but it could be a ground cover of some sort. And so this is a ground cover question. Somebody was asking me about frog fruit, which is one of its many names. And Bill and I were discussing how we've never had to do anything to make frog fruit be in our yard. It's just there as a weed. But they were asking how to propagate it. Of course, the train was
I hear a train.
They were asking how to propagate it. And we were saying you can either wait till spring or you can do it now and it will probably take root in pots, but it might look dead all winter long. But if you dig it up out of your yard and you want to put it elsewhere, it's beautiful. It attracts 3 different types of butterflies. It's a great plant, but it's a weed. So you're not going to have trouble, I don't think, incorporating it in your yard. So something like that or another low-growing ground cover is another option. And I'm going to go and let you talk and mute for a minute.
Yeah, there's a number of different ground covers that you could put on top of a drain field. Frog fruit or fog fruit, it goes by a couple different common names, is basically a weed, and I have several large patches in my yard of it. It grows like a weed. It takes care of itself. It does get little flowers in the summer. It is a host plant for 3 different butterflies. So even if you cut it as a part of your lawn, because you're cutting your lawn every week to keep it looking nice, the caterpillars will still feed on it, and it really helps to add to the number of butterflies you have in your yard. Let's say if you also have a butterfly garden, it's another very good plant to have on your property to help support those caterpillars, which end up being butterflies. Very easy to grow. It does die back during the winter. So it looks kind of brown and dead in the winter, but comes right back in the spring. I have large patches in my front yard. I have a big patch in the backyard. Right now, the peacock butterflies, which is a very large butterfly, which is white. It has a lot of white on it and some other colors. Their caterpillars feed on that weed or plant all summer long, and now the butterflies are out. So definitely a very good choice for a ground cover, depending on exactly what kind of things you want in your yard. I know a lot of people insist on turf grass, and it has to be perfect turf grass with no weeds. But if you're a little bit more open to a variety of different plants in your turf, frog fruit or fog fruit is a really good choice. So if anybody has any other questions, or if you want to contact Lily with an email, there's her email. It's very long, but if you want to go ahead and write that down, that's the best way to contact Lily.
It would be longer if Browning was in it.
Yeah, it might not fit on the screen then. So,
do you see the question about what kind of plants? Are there plants you can put over it to absorb the excess nitrogen? I would think any plants would. Not all of it, but a little bit of it.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
so definitely plant material, planted on that drain field can take up nitrogen. It's not going to be relatively huge amount compared to how much we need to remove from a water quality perspective. You're not going to, it's not a silver bullet. You're not going to get all the removal that we need from plants, but any plant material will take that nitrogen up if its roots are extending down into that area where the wastewater effluent is. So turfgrass roots, again, are probably going to be very good at that.
Yeah, turf grass is probably your safest and best bet because it will take up excess water, will take up excess nitrogen. You probably would not want to fertilize your lawn as heavily on top of the drain field. You probably really don't need to because it probably is getting at least a little bit of excess nitrogen from that drain field. Mm-hmm. And kind of building on the comment about the frog fruit or fog fruit, Courtney says she has hundreds of peacock butterflies and Gulf fritillaries in the wildflower garden now. I have both because my neighbors have passion vine that spills over the fence into my yard, and the caterpillars eat it all summer long. And by this time of year, I have huge numbers of butterflies in my backyard, and I didn't have to do any of the work. It was my neighbors that did it. So extra bonus there.
After you throw all those insects over in their yard.
Yeah. I take the rubber grasshoppers and toss them over the fence into their yard. So Susan wants to know, what fruit trees do you recommend for a spot that gets partial shade? Is there anything other than the banana that is less prone to insect and fungal attacks and other pests? It's a big question, and probably the first thing I need to know is where you live, whether you live in Hernando County. Obviously, it's going to be very, very different if you live in Broward County. They can grow all the great tropical fruits that we get too cold up here for. Most fruit trees, actual fruit trees, are going to like full sun. But if it gets partial shade, it comes down to just how shady is partial shade. Citrus can grow in partial shade. Most fruit trees are going to grow in partial shade. They just don't grow as quickly and as well as if they were in full sun. So a couple very, very easy to grow things, loquats. A lot of people don't think about loquats, and they're about as close as to a no maintenance fruit tree as you can get. You plant one and they grow quickly for a tree. They will flower in the fall. They get the little loquat fruits that you can pick and eat. You can make loquat jam. I've never tried it before, but I've heard it's very good. So it's something that you actually get something edible off of. And loquats have very, very few problems. Citrus right now has a lot of problems due mostly to citrus greening, although there are greening resistant rootstocks, I believe now that they are releasing some new citrus trees on. I'm hoping to have a class on that coming up within the next month or so. I need to make a few arrangements with that. So follow us on Facebook, or let me go ahead and throw this in right now. If you ever want to find out what kind of classes we have scheduled coming up, if you go to hernandoextension.com, that's a freestanding webpage that has a whole listing of all of our upcoming virtual plant clinics, all of Lily's classes, my classes, everybody else in the office, whether it's on Zoom or Facebook or exactly where it is. All the information you need is right there. So write that down and check that one frequently. Oh, Susan says that she is in Pinellas Park. So a little bit south of here. You're bordering on maybe you can be a bit more successful with things like mangoes and lychees and longans and all that tropical fruit.
Dragon fruit.
Dragon fruit, yes. I'm dragon fruit obsessed now. I'm going to get some and I'm going to grow it this coming summer because I like it very much. You should be able to grow dragon fruit down there. It's also known as pitaya, Pitaya, and it is a cactus, that a very, very thick branched cactus.
A night blooming cactus.
That grows up and gets really big flowers that bloom at night and turns into a fruit. And I have seen the fruit for sale at Winn-Dixie's and Publix. So you may want to try looking for it the next time you're at the grocery store. And buy one and try it before you grow it, because you don't want to grow it first and then come to the conclusion that you hate it. So save yourself a little time and money and try buying one and eating it. Make sure you enjoy it. But yeah, dragon fruit you should be able to grow in Pinellas Park. You could try mangoes. It should be warm enough down there in the winter for them.
What about avocados?
Avocados, yeah, there are varieties of avocados that take colder weather. We are a little bit too far north. Some people here in Hernando County are successful with avocados, but not many. Even if you go just a little bit south down to Pinellas County, Pinellas Park, southern parts of maybe Wimauma. Mary, do you guys grow down at the research center? Do you have, what kind of trees do you have growing there?
We don't have any avocado trees or anything like that. I don't think we do any fruit trees here. We're mostly berries, blueberries, blackberries, strawberries.
Yeah, I know they have blackberries there. Yeah, so you can experiment with some of those tropical fruits. You may be warm enough, depending on exactly where you are, for them to do well, including avocados. And Debbie says that she makes use of that HernandoExtension.com. Thank you very much. And see, she's in Broward County, so it's a good thing that I took that class when I was in school, that summer-long internship down in Homestead on tropical fruits, because you guys asked me a lot of questions about that. And do passion fruit grow well in zone 9A? Yes.
You're going to have to bring it in if it gets cold. It's cold sensitive. So you're going to have to cover it or keep it in a pot or something.
Most passion fruit here does naturally die back in the winter.
I'm sorry. I was thinking dragon fruit. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. Passion fruit, the passion vines.
Yeah. Yeah, it grows like crazy.
Grows like a weed. There's several different types, different varieties. So if you're going to grow it.
How do you ensure that you get a fruit? Because most of the time you just get the vine. How would you coax a fruit out of that, Dr. Lester?
How do you get fruit from the passion vines?
Yes.
You have to grow specific varieties. The it's Passiflora incarnata, I think. The one with the purple flower.
Yeah, the native one, yeah.
Yeah. Does produce fruit, but very, very little.
Yeah.
There's another variety that they grow commercially, and I think it gets red flowers, but it's different from there's two that get red flowers.
And one of them is invasive. Yeah.
Correct. But there's another one that gets red flowers and produces a lot of edible fruit, and the caterpillars generally don't bother it. The extension agent up in Marion County has it growing. He has it growing on his property and grows a ton of it and does very well with it. So you really have to look into getting the exact right variety to grow if you want to grow it for the fruit.
Right.
If you're growing it just to feed caterpillars, go for the purple flower one. The caterpillars will munch it right up and you'll have lots of butterflies.
And they will freeze back in the winter and you'll be glad.
Yep.
Because then you can start all over again in the spring, because they are pioneering, is what we call native plants that like to spread around.
Yeah, they come right back in the spring and they take over.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to Pinellas Park, Susan said, thank you. We have tried avocados. They got the shot hole fungus. So yeah, many of these different trees are going to have different fungal problems. You're going to have to get on a regular fungicide program. The papayas were infested with maggots. Yeah, those are fruit fly larvae, and they can be a problem with any kind of fruit. papayas, peaches, plums, nectarines. There's a lot of vegetables, a lot of different things can get fruit flies. So there's nothing that's easy and, surefire to grow that's not going to have some kind of problem. But going back here, I saw this one question as we kind of get down to the last couple questions here. If you got a burning question, get it in quick. Facebook user asks, where do you recommend people go in the Hernando County area to buy healthy, quality, great priced, Florida-friendly plants?
I think this Facebook user is a plant of yours, Dr. Lester. I think their name might either be Teresa or Nora.
No, this is not a plant, and I honestly don't know who Facebook user is, but our master gardeners have a nursery, and they have nothing but Florida-friendly plants and native plants. The last I was told, they had 20 some odd different species of native plants for sale. So they have the kind of plants that you wouldn't normally see at the big box stores. And their nursery is located on Oliver Street, which, if you're in Hernando County and you're familiar with where the Hernando County Fairgrounds are, right along 41, it's the street that runs right behind the fairgrounds. It's the same street that animal control is on. So if you go to the end of the road and you see animal control, you went too far. You need to turn around and come halfway back up the road, and that's where the nursery is. They are there, and they are open on Wednesdays and Saturdays from 9 in the morning until, I believe, 11 a.m. right now. The hours are going to change and go until noon during the winter, but I don't think we're there yet, because they like 11 in the summer because it gets really, really hot outside.
Yeah.
But during the winter, they'll stay until noon because it's a little bit nicer.
Do you see the one from Courtney, her question? Near the
Yes, and I think we'll kind of wrap it up with Courtney. She lives in Brooksville on the Ridge, so Lily, you should be familiar with that.
Uh-huh.
She has that clay gumbo dirt, and that's the kind of soil that we have in our nursery. If we dig a hole like 1.5 feet deep, we hit this layer of pottery clay. You could dig it up and make a pot out of it and set it in the sun.
I've actually done that.
Yeah, you could. Are there any fruit trees that will grow well in that dirt, or will I have to amend it? It's a difficult medium to deal with. So, Lily?
I think it would be I think it's probably easier to grow fruit trees in those as compared to our sandy soils, more on the western side of the county, unless you want to improve some of the drainage capacity. I think we're back to compost. Compost is the answer for a lot of things that will improve the porosity of the soil, as well as the nutrient holding capacity and all of that. So you can always work in some compost, or even top dress the fruit trees with the compost. What do you feel about that?
It is always a good idea to work in generous amounts of compost before you plant something. And if you have, let's say, a vegetable garden, keep working compost and mulches that are going to break down completely, like fallen leaves and pine straw.
Yeah.
And
add
grass
the
clippings.
and some oxygen in the soil by adding those organic elements. And those of us in the sandy soils are jealous of you. So,
Yes, because in the thicker soils, that compost helps to loosen it up a little bit and improve drainage, because you need better drainage. I live in Spring Hill and I got pure sand. I got plenty of drainage. I need something that's going to hold the moisture better, and compost does that also. So compost is about as close as you can get to a perfect soil amendment, that no matter what kind of soil you have, if it's too thick, too thin, drains too well, doesn't drain at all, compost is going to be the perfect solution no matter what your problem is.
mm-hmm. But I think any kind of fruit that will grow here in 9A should do fine in that soil.
Sure. I mean, in this area, in this environment, there are a lot of different choices for fruits that you can grow. Like I said, loquats are very, very easy, low maintenance. There are a lot of varieties of peaches, plums, nectarines that were developed by University of Florida that are ideal for this area. We get the right number of chill hours for them to do well here. If you have your heart set on growing those tropical things, like they can grow in Pinellas County, they're not going to do as well here because there's a good chance they're going to freeze during the winter. So mangoes, avocados, lychees, pitayas or dragon fruit get a little dicey here. You have to have a plan on how to keep them warm during the winter. But we do have a lot of different choices for fruits that you can grow here. Just don't try growing apples. Apples do not do well in Florida. Sorry. Maybe they do very, very well where you lived up north. I'm sure they do great where Lily is right now in Pennsylvania. Lots of apples.
I just spent last night canning applesauce with my sister. She had gone to a local orchard and got them. But, right plant, right place.
Exactly. So if there are apple orchards in Pennsylvania, they probably do well there. We don't have apple orchards here in Hernando County because they don't do very well here. So there is my email address if anybody wants to send me an email if you need any additional information. And let me go ahead and put Mary's email up here. If you guys have any specific questions about septic systems, drain fields, anything like that. Like I said, Mary is the expert in that area. I'm still learning. I'm still a student of septic technology, I guess.
We're all still learning.
Yes.
We are, and things are always changing in that area also. So it's really important for homeowners to kind of keep on top of that or know where to go and get accurate information if you do have a septic problem, you're thinking about building a house. Don't depend on your brother-in-law and don't depend on your next door neighbor or the guy that cuts your grass. They may not know the current accurate information.
Can I tell about my upcoming classes?
Sure, you go right ahead.
Well, tomorrow, Friday, in honor of Halloween, it's pre-recorded, so you don't have to do anything but see it on Facebook. I have Spooky Gardens, the dark, ghostly, and mysterious plants will be added in there. Dragon fruit makes an appearance in that particular, both for its, kind of funky looking red fruit and also for its nighttime blooming flowers, ghostly looking flowers. So, and that's just going to be fun. And I had John Burnett from the Department of Public Works narrate it for me, so you don't even have to listen to me the whole time. You get somebody else new to listen to, and he does a great job at it. The Hernando County has a YouTube channel that they're working on being more active with. So if you go to YouTube and look up Hernando County government, almost all of the things on there right now are mine because I had them readily available. So you can see a lot of my classes. That Spooky Gardens should be on there soon. He's going to add music to that one. I wasn't able to add music to the Zoom. But I'll have it up tomorrow at 10 in honor of Halloween. And then next week, Thursday, 10 o'clock, I start my regular classes back up again. And that one is going to be Florida-friendly landscaping for the part-time resident. So if you are a snowbird or you know one, listen in and we'll have some good tips for, your specific circumstances. And that's what's coming up. So.
And once again, if you go to www.hernandoextension.com, you can always find out all of our upcoming classes and activities. We put them all there. Just as soon as we have them all planned out and scheduled, you're going to find them there. So, hey, everybody, it looks like it's just about that time. So, Mary, thank you so much for coming on here today. And I'm glad that we got so many really good specific septic and drain field kind of questions there, because it is an important and potentially very expensive topic that, we're more than happy to help people out any way that we can with advice.
Yeah,
And
thanks so much for letting me be here today. This has been great. I've really enjoyed it.
that's great. Well, hopefully you had a good time, and we'll be able to have you back here again sometime. Because, like I said, in the world of septics and BMAPs and priority focus areas and legislation and rules and regulations, it's always changing. So it's
Right.
always good to tune in and keep on top of those kind of things. So, hey, I think with that, thank you very much, everybody who tuned in today. Hope you guys had a really good time. Like I said, if you have any other questions, just get in touch with us. And we will see you here again next Thursday at 10 a.m. right back here. So
And I'll
until
be
then,
back in the Sunshine State.
exactly. Hopefully it'll be sunny and maybe a little bit cooler by next week too. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.